Hi, Motheo. Walter here. I just booked my flights for a family trip to Italy using my Visa card, and I know my card purchase gives me automatic travel insurance. But I've been told to watch out for what's not covered. Do I need to top up my insurance, and am I vulnerable if I just rely on complimentary cover?
Thank you to Walter for that very important question. Now, just a few months ago, the closure of Qatar's airspace caused major disruptions for travelers. A clear reminder that global events can upend even the most carefully planned trips. It's not something we usually think of as a financial product, but travel insurance is exactly that. A small upfront cost that protects a much larger investment. Welcome to Everything Counts. In this bi-weekly podcast series, we frank about money and the particular discussions we should all be having. How to save it, how to spend it, how to grow it, its pitfalls, and how to make it work for us. On Everything Counts, we'll share the information you need to get your financial ducks in a row. Hello, I'm Motheo Khoaripe, host of Everything Counts. In this episode, we're joined by Paolo Giuricich, head of Investec Travel, and Anrieth Symon, who is the head of travel at Bryte Insurance, to expand on complementary versus comprehensive travel insurance and the danger of risking it all with free cover. Welcome to Anrieth and Paolo to Everything Counts on this particular episode, talking travel insurance. So when we book flights, right, the main thing we want to think about is where we're going, what we're going to do when we get there, but we often overlook the travel insurance part. Why is it important to focus on that when you plan a really good trip for either your family, whether it's business travel, or even as a solo trip?
So there's many reasons, I guess. When we think about travel, we're actually making an investment in really an intangible thing. You're going to go on a holiday, you're going to go on a business trip, and it's something that will provide you with lasting memories, and you want those memories to be good. Things happen when you travel because travel is not a perfect science, and therefore it's really important that you cover yourself and ultimately the investment that you make in to travel, which is generally quite expensive, to make sure that you are covered for anything unforeseen that can actually happen.
And typically your free or your complimentary insurance provided to Investec clients, the medical cover is limited, and there at the most are minimal inconvenience benefits that are included in the free or complimentary cover.
So let's start with the bigger picture. Not all travel insurance is created equal. Why is comprehensive travel insurance so important?
If I can add a bit of numbers to this and talk a bit about the claims we've paid out. So in the past 16 months, we paid out just over 27 million rand in claims to Investec clients. That averages about 1.7 million rand a month. Of that, 19.7 million rand was for medical claims. Locally, when you go to see your GP, 500, 700 rand. When you go abroad, it's 22,500 rand. Now, the largest medical claim we paid in the last 16 months is 8.4 million rand. This client paid 705 rand for his additional cover. Now, that's the best return on investment you can make.
Absolutely. And when I think of travel insurance, people often think that it's just medical insurance.
Yeah.
And although medical is probably the number one claim, I would imagine,
And the highest
in terms of quantum and value, when we think of travel insurance, there are other things that can go wrong. So when we talk about a comprehensive policy, we're thinking about missed connections, for example, with your travels, lost luggage, cancellation, all the ancillary things that you don't really think about of things that can go wrong. So when we talk comprehensive versus complementary cover, what you're doing is you're upsizing to take account of bigger events that can happen, and the levels and quantums of cover is what determines what we call comprehensive in nature.
So it's not just enough for me to swipe my credit card and get a complimentary cover. There could be other things that happen that need me to add on to my insurance.
Absolutely. When you buy the additional or the top-up cover, we offer additional medical cover. So your cover is limited to 4 million rand under your your complementary cover. So we currently have a client that is in hospital. She's in her 70s. She fell down 5 stairs. She suffered multiple fractures. When she got to hospital, she developed pneumonia and heart failure. She travelled on a free cover of a credit card, which was limited to 1.5 million rand. The bills are currently sitting at just under 3.6 million. She is still in hospital. She will probably remain in hospital for the next 3 weeks. Everything over 1.5 million is for the client's account.
And when you think about 1.5 million, I mean, you think it's really comprehensive to cover a lot.
You think it's a lot of money.
You travel to countries like Europe, you travel to the US where our currency is not as strong, and the numbers change.
The numbers change, and it is a life-changing event. When you are in your 70s, where do you find another 2 million rand to buy a hospital?
So I'd like to just add another lens to maybe contextualize what this could look like. So I travel extensively, and I've always held the view that one should always take the most comprehensive insurance you can get, the one that costs the most with all the bells and whistles, because you never know what's going to happen. And when I think about the cost of that, you're looking at a cost of, for a family of 4, for example, call it, say, 4,000 Rand or 5,000 Rand extra on your trip. And when you add that amount of money, that could be the same as one night's accommodation. It could be the same as a dinner out. And why did I get to that place? As a traveler, it had to happen to me once when I felt the pain of being underinsured, which taught me. And I'll give the classic example. We were skiing, we liked to snow ski, and one of the things that happened was my wife fell and she twisted her knee a little bit. Before we could get into a doctor's room, the minimum fee was 500 euros. Do the maths on that. That's 10,000 Rand or more just to step in to the medical practitioner's door. Now, that was nothing serious, and the claim was paid, etc. But you realize in that moment that if you don't have the cover, it's just not worth the risk. If you were thinking about this from an investment perspective, if you were making an investment of your money, travel is the same thing. It's an investment which you need to protect.
Let's look at the other important and perhaps the more positive things that you can get from top-up insurance. Like, it's not only medical, but it could be a change maybe in airline tickets, or maybe you've missed a flight and things like that you can add on to perhaps make your trip a little easier.
So in insurance terms, we always talk about severity and frequency. So severity is where your medical claims come in. That's your 8.4 million rand claim. And there are multiple claims that are above 100,000 rand. But the frequency are the inconvenience benefit claims. So most people claim for baggage, then travel delay, then cancellation. So these are things that happen the most to travelers when you look at frequency. Now, we, in the past 16 months, we paid 1.4 million rand in baggage-related claims. So that is baggage theft, accidental loss, and baggage delay. 1.1 million rand in travel delays. It's your travel delay, your flight was delayed, you missed your connection, you missed your departure, and you missed a pre-booked event.
Which are all very real possibilities.
Very real possibilities. We recently had an Investec client who bought, fortunately, the additional cover. He became seriously ill in the weeks leading up to his and his wife's departure, and he had to cancel his trip. We paid 169,000 Rand in cancellation fees to this client. That is a lot of money. That's where your cancellation and your baggage claims come in. They put you back in the situation you were before you traveled. And that's why it is so important to have that additional comprehensive cover.
And then part of the additional upsell options around cancellation is something called cancel for an unnamed reason, which basically means if you have the disinclination to travel, you can insure yourself a certain sum of money that you can simply cancel your trip and claim your cancellation fees that are not reimbursed to you.
You don't have to state the reason.
You don't have to state the reason. It's called disinclination to travel. I choose not to travel. It comes at an additional cost, but it makes no sense in my mind in a post-COVID world to never upsell where you need to, because things change. And I mean, if you just look at what's happening in travel on a daily basis, you understand. Even today, we woke up to the news of a strike of one of the domestic carriers in South Africa. When that happens, you are exposed. And if you were investing your money, would you choose to be exposed when you invest your money?
You don't want to lose your money.
You don't want to lose your money. So we need to be savvy about the choices that we make and ensure that our clients understand that when complementary cover is an assumed benefit, it is a great benefit, but it's not enough to cater for any eventuality.
Anrieth, can you list for us some of the most common claims? I know some people say, I'm lucky, things like that don't happen to me. You know, I get to the airport on time, nothing really affects my day much, so I'm going to take the least amount of cover. Some of the things that could happen without you thinking.
Every day, it is baggage, travel delay, and cancellation. They are at the top of the scale. Those are things that people claim most for. And if we look at all the chaos in the world, I mean, there are the weirdest things happening across the globe.
We wake up to different things every day.
Every single day. I watch every news channel there is, because I know tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up to our actuaries phoning me, what's our exposure here, what's our exposure there. There are the weirdest things happening. And every one of those events have an impact on your trip, or potentially have an impact on your trip.
And if you think of the way Qatari airspace closed recently, with Qatar Airways and Doha being a major hub, like Dubai and Emirates, and suddenly the flights stop. People are mid-journey.
Connections are impacted.
Connections are impacted. One has no idea how long the suspension's going to be. What do you do?
Call my insurer.
Call your insurer, or you call Investec, and you get supported in understanding what your options are. And I suppose the benefit of taking the various insurances is that you will be supported by the place that you bought those insurances from, because we want you to travel and we want you to have the best time that you possibly can have. And to not even think and know that we've got your back.
Well, some great insights there for Walter and myself, I might include. We're going to take a short break. When I come back, I'll be asking Paolo and Anrieth why the time you buy your cover matters, and we'll look at the all-important fine print.
Even the best-laid travel plans can hit unexpected bumps. While your complimentary cover offers a great start, Bryte's additional travel insurance gives you peace of mind with extended protection. From medical emergencies to trip cancellations and lost luggage, Bryte ensures you're covered beyond the basics, so you can travel with confidence no matter where you go.
A card as international as you are. Your Investec private bank account is multi-currency enabled and tailor-made for you. A single account, one card, 4 currencies, unlimited rewards. Easy, seamless, intuitive. Whatever kind of person you are, and whatever your international needs may be, your Investec private bank account is multi-currency enabled and tailor-made for you.
And we're back talking travel insurance on this episode of Everything Counts. Paolo and Anrieth taking us through some very fascinating information. Let's talk exclusions now. What won't most travel insurance policies pay out for, and why?
So the policy wording has got general exclusions that apply to the entire policy wording. Then there are specific conditions and exclusions that apply to every section of the policy wording. It's very important that people and clients familiarize themselves with the content of the policy wording. Make sure that you know what you are covered for and what the conditions and exclusions to that benefit are. Things that are typically not covered is events that you could have foreseen are going to happen. Certain adventures, sports and hazardous activities are not covered. People generally do normal stuff that we all do on holidays, but you get very adventurous people that participate in very high risk activities. Some of those might not be included. It's important to contact us, and we will advise you whether the specific activity you want to be participating in is covered.
So you have to offer that information to say, look, I'm an adrenaline junkie.
Yes.
This is what I'm involved in.
Exactly.
I'm going to jump out of a plane a few times. Am I covered?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So for me, as a snow skier, I always make sure that snow skiing is included in a comprehensive policy.
And it is.
And it is, but there can still be exclusions around
Yes.
that.
Where you're doing it.
Where you're doing
Dangers
it,
of-
is it on what we call on-piste, is it on a black slope, etc. So you've got to be very clear about some of the exclusions and things like civil unrest, war, etc. Are things that if we know are happening, there may be exclusions. And when we talk about these exclusions, it's not about Investec selling a policy that has all these variety of exclusions. These are things across the board, across the whole travel
that's the
insurance
standard.
industry. It is
Industry.
the standard.
And speaking about the pre-existing conditions, now we know this particular term from dealings with medical aid or life insurers. So what's important to know in terms of travel insurance and traveling with known conditions?
So firstly, it's very important to note that cover for pre-existing medical conditions are not included in your complementary cover. You do have to buy the additional or the top-up cover to get cover or qualify for cover for pre-existing medical conditions. We do not require you to declare your condition, what you are suffering from. We offer it to every traveller. And up to the age of 79 years old, everyone will get cover for pre-existing medical conditions, provided they buy the additional or top-up cover.
So how does that affect the premium? I don't have to say what the ailment is. I just have to get it covered.
Yes, and it doesn't impact the premium. You pay the same premium as somebody who does not have a pre-existing medical condition.
But if you know you do have one, you have to then take
You
that
have
cover.
to buy the additional cover.
And I think it's also just useful to talk about the fact that if somebody is over 70 years of age, there is automatically an exclusion for cardiovascular disease,
Yes.
unless you actually choose as a person over 70 years old to buy additional cover, what we call a buyback for that exclusion specifically. Because the older one gets, the higher the insurance risk becomes related to an older person.
Yes, so all cardiac, cardiovascular, vascular, cerebrovascular conditions are excluded for travellers 70 years and older. But as Paolo mentioned, we have this optional additional benefit where you can buy back the exclusion. And that is available to travellers from 70 to 75 years inclusive. But you have to also buy the additional cover, and then you can buy these additional optional cover to buy back the cardio exclusion.
And I just want to sneak in a question here around those premiums, right? If I know I'm somebody who likes adventure and I'll be river rafting and doing all those things, is my premium more than the person who's just going to be doing normal activities at a museum, or are we paying the same money?
If it's part of our list of covered sports events or activities, no. We might find that somebody, and I must say the Investec travellers are very adventurous. They like doing things that are not done by the average Joe on the street.
Sounds exciting.
Yes, no, they like going on exciting trips. There might be activities that they participate in that we might charge additional premium for.
So I think what I'd like to clarify at this point is that your complimentary cover is simply when you swipe your credit card for an air ticket, you get the complimentary cover. When we talk about top-up or additional cover, there are set rates per number of days, dependent on your age, etc., of how you actually pay a little bit more to get the additional cover. Then when we're talking about things like pre-existing conditions, and if you're over the age of 70, or if you buy an additional piece for cancellation or cancel for unnamed reason cover, these are all pieces that you add to the cost of your additional cover. So it's a very bespoke way of doing things. So you need to discuss it quite intimately with your travel consultant or with Bryte Insurance or your insurer directly so that you get the cover that you need. It's not a simple tick box exercise. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to deal with a professional like you would if you were thinking of making an investment and speaking to your financial advisor. You need to speak to somebody who understands travel insurance and understands your context to be able to provide you with all the information that you need to make that choice yourself.
Let's then, to anyone that's listening to this right now and saying, look, I'm happy with my credit card. What exactly am I getting with that cover? Because I hear you talking about the additional cover, the top-up that is actually quite comprehensive and really good when planning a trip with your family or just for business travel. But as a person who is just swiping my credit card, am I getting at least some considerable cover?
You're getting limited medical cover of 4 million rand and at the most minimal inconvenience benefits. You get assistance through our emergency medical assistance company, and that's basically it.
The both of you have changed my mind, because I'm that swiping credit card guy, and I need comprehensive cover, because every time I've traveled, it's always been, look, I've chosen and I ticked the box on travel insurance, that's all I need to do, but I don't think about the major eventualities that can happen during a holiday.
So I think it's really important that we talk about what a comprehensive top-up or additional cover, what gap that it bridges between the automatic or free cover, and what impact it has on the policies. I think it's really important to understand that. So I'll kick off by talking about the fact that expanded medical cover that accounts for hospitalizations, outpatient treatment, repatriation, especially in regions where there's costly healthcare systems, and that's really important. So you'd go from, for example, a 4 million rand cover to 120 million rand of cover. Now that's a big differential, and that sounds like a lot, but depends how many people are traveling in your party, what age they are, etc. And then things like inconvenience benefits, compensation for delays, lost and delayed baggage, trip curtailment. Those extras are not assumed on an automatic policy, and you need to top up to get the best benefits around those. And then I think an important thing to also talk about is the integration of medical aid schemes. So now a lot of medical aids have an international travel benefit as an extension of your medical aid benefit in South Africa. So people often think, I get the free insurance when I swipe for my ticket and pay for my air ticket, and I'll just rely on the medical aid.
Yeah.
That in a way becomes problematic because you also don't understand what's included and what's not. And that medical aid cover generally does not have all the extra ancillaries of inconvenience benefits, compensation for delays, etc. So it's really important that we don't rest in the knowledge that we've got this policy here, that policy here or there, because then ultimately, who do you go to when something happens?
Sure.
And also we find that with the medical aids, they do not pay for the transport of the patients abroad. So if moving you from one country to another country, they do not pay for that. They will pay for the hospital costs up to a certain limit. We find 9 times out of 10 that we kick in at a point, we act as a first responder. So we will take over the case because we've got translators and agents across the globe that are in those countries. They go, they talk to the hospitals, they facilitate the conversations between the patients and the medical staff. If a client has to be repatriated by air ambulance back to South Africa, you took 3 million rand as a starting point upwards. Medical aid does not pay for that. That's what your insurer comes in and pays for.
So one of the other things we should also consider is that to be able to pay up front for all the services you may require can be quite tough. You simply may not have the funds. And part of a comprehensive topped up insurance policy is that you'll get hospital guarantees of payment, which ensure that you're not turned away or forced to pay for the care up front. And 9 times out of 10, you probably can't, unless it's a small outpatient thing, which you can simply claim back once you're home. But I think the important thing is also letting the insurer know when there is something that's of a significant magnitude that you might be experiencing, rather than just simply trying to sort it out yourself.
Let's talk then about the timing of when you take out travel insurance. Why does the timing matter so much?
Well, it's very important that you buy your travel insurance the same time you book your trip. Your cancellation cover kicks in 1 day after you bought your additional cover premium, and you are covered for cancellation cover even if you bought your package 365 days in advance. You have cancellation cover up till the point that you are meant to get on the flight to leave South Africa.
We've spoken a lot about international travel and what type of insurance you need when you're going abroad. But what about local travel? Is that also covered?
It is. You have to buy additional cover for that. It's not, again, included in your complementary cover. Because of the medical scheme's demarcation rules, we are not allowed to give medical cover in South Africa, but we are allowed to provide cover for medical evacuation or transport to a medical center, which is often important.
So I think, just to be clear, there's no automatic cover for domestic travel.
No.
When you swipe your Investec credit card to purchase
Something you'd have to raise.
Something you'd have to buy up to. Whereas if you buy an international ticket, you do get the automatic cover immediately, but we'd encourage you to always buy additional insurance to the levels that you need.
Oh, travel insurance is such a major factor. It's just as important as where you're going to stay and also the airline you're going to use to travel. Thank you so much to Paolo and Anrieth for helping us understand this better. And to our listeners, check that policy and make sure you know exactly what you're covered for. I know I'll be reading more carefully in the future. We hope this has helped. Next time on Everything Counts, we have this question from Gina.
Hi, Motheo. My name is Gina. I've just started working and I'm finally able to consider planning a trip to Europe. It's been a dream, but I'm overwhelmed. Flights, hotels, dates, it all feels like a gamble. I'm on a budget, so I need value at every step, but I also want to have authentic experiences that money can't buy. When is the right time to book? Should I wait for prices to drop? How do I avoid the rookie mistakes that make travel more expensive than it needs to be?
In the meantime, you can send your questions for us using the hashtag #EverythingCounts. See you in a fortnight.
The views expressed are those of the contributors at the time of publication and do not necessarily represent the views of the firm and should not be taken as advice or recommendations. Investec Private Banking, a division of Investec Bank Limited, a registered credit provider committed to the Code of Banking Practice as regulated by the Ombudsman for Banking Services.